My name is Cassina. I am the chef de cuisine at Trio and American Bistro in Jackson, Wyoming, and today I'm going to talk to you about the art of cooking the perfect steak according to me. What we have here is a sirloin strip from Allison's Ranch in Nebraska. It's beautiful Wagyu. I'm going to start by just kind of trimming up a little bit of the fat around it. So first we're just going to slice off this end piece here and make sure we've got a nice, kind of a clean slate to start on over here. And you can see that's beautifully marbled just from the first cut. It's fantastic meat. Really going to render out nicely when it's cooked and be a super buttery texture. So we've got that first cut clean. I'm going to just trim up a little bit off the backside, make sure these steaks look nice and uniform when they all come out, and maybe just a little off the front here, just to kind of get rid of some sinew and fat. Okay, now we're ready to cut into steaks. We're shooting for about 10 to 12 ounces is what we serve here for our New Yorks. I think that's a nice manageable size. It's also a nice manageable thickness. You want enough thickness that you can get the temp you want, keep it nice and juicy, and if it's too thin, it's going to be a little more difficult to do that. So we try to make sure that we're maybe around 1.5 inches, 2 inches on each steak. So this knife is really perfect for this because it just slices right through. The length is perfect. I don't really have to stop in my slice to adjust my knife. It's a really good length for doing something like this. Something that's really important when you're cooking your perfect steak is to let it come to room temp. So maybe 20 minutes or so, just long enough to get the chill off of it so when it hits the pan, you don't get a really intense bullseye where it took time to warm up in the middle so it didn't reach the temp evenly. Tempering your steak is one of the most important things that you can do. So what we're gonna do right now is sear these beautiful steaks. We've got a cast iron preheating. It's really important to preheat the cast iron. We wanna make sure it retains its heat. It's really nice and hot when we get started. So something that's really important is to, in my opinion, not salt your meat ahead of time. I think it's best to just salt right before it hits the pan so you're not drawing out excess moisture. You want your best chances at a nice crispy crust. So we've got our pepper on here, and that's kind of been sitting on there for a little while to try and infuse some of that pepper flavor in there. And we're gonna go ahead and salt it. And you can salt pretty generously, maybe a little more generously than you would suspect, because you're seasoning for the whole steak, not just these outside edges that we're looking at. So we're all seasoned up, we're ready to go. We're gonna get some butter that I've cubed up here just for easy handling, and we're gonna throw it in our pan. The pan is smoking hot, which is how we want it. You can see that butter's just going and browning up already. You wanna make sure your pan is nice and hot because otherwise it's gonna lose its heat as soon as that steak hits, and you're not gonna get that beautiful crust that you're looking for. So we've got our steak. We're just gonna go ahead and set it on down. We're over a nice high heat to start. And you can see it's already all happening. You can see the butter starting to brown. We're gonna let that rip for just a couple minutes. You can shake it up once or twice, move it a little bit, make sure that it's not sticking to the pan, that you've got your fat underneath there helping you get that beautiful crust going, but it is important not to touch it too much. My grandmother used to say, stop kitzeling as you're cooking, because sometimes you just need to let it go. And I think the best chance of forming a beautiful crust there is just letting it be once you get the fat underneath the steak. So we're just gonna let this go for a minute. You can see that butter is browning, it's bubbling up, it smells like heaven. It's perfect. Oh yeah, look at that. So we're gonna start to turn it down now since we got the beginning of a good crust on there. We don't want it to buckle. We wanna make sure, like I said before, that we have a nice, even cook temperature. So we're gonna go ahead and flip this bad boy over. So that was maybe a minute, maybe 2 on that other side, and you've already got that gorgeous sear. You can go ahead and give it a touch if you feel comfortable temping with your fingers. Say we're right at about rare right now, so we'll let it go for another minute or 2 to get up to mid-rare. All right, let's take a look at the other side and how it's doing. That looks beautiful. Spend a little time on the fat cap here and be careful because the fat can be volatile. It can spit or pop, but just a little something to get that going. Now, if you've got a really thick steak, this would be a great time to throw it in the oven at 350. Let it go a little longer, or if you're looking for a higher temp, like mid-well or medium. But since this isn't a big steak and we're going to shoot for mid-rare, we're going to go ahead and finish it off right now. And this is kind of the best part, really. And we're going to grab a whole bunch of delicious butter and a spoon. We're going to come over here. So what we're going to do now to kind of finish this thing off and add a little bit of extra flavor, a little extra something, is we're going to add a whole bunch more butter. At this point, you can go ahead and turn the temp down pretty low because we're not trying to cook the steak up anymore. We're just trying to add a little extra flavor. So you can let that melt. And now this is probably one of the best sounds known to man, is herbs crackling in a hot pan. We've got rosemary and thyme here, but really you can use whatever you've got, whatever's fresh, whatever flavors you want in your steak. So now I'm going to go ahead and just kind of spoon this over it. And that's going to infuse a lot of flavor, just a little earthiness, a little herbal, something to give your steak a little bit more. So this steak looks great. It's ready to go. We're going to bring it over to the cutting board to rest now. And it's really important to rest your steaks and really any protein after it's done cooking. And the reason for that is if we slice it right now, all those beautiful juices, all that amazing fat that has rendered and kind of melted is going to just pour right out of this steak. It's all going to come right out of it. You're going to have a dry steak. And after all that work and for paying for a beautiful steak, that's not what you want. So if you let a steak this size rest for 5 minutes, it's going to be juicy. Everything is going to redistribute and settle in. So when you're ready to cut it, it's going to be perfect. See, this knife is perfect for this. There you've got it. Nice, beautiful steak. And now for the moment we've been waiting for, that all of this has been leading up to, we're going to try it. It was wonderful. You can taste the butter, the salt comes through, the herbs come through, the fat comes through. There's a good crust on there. It's really wonderful. In my opinion, this is perfect. There's a lot of methods out there for cooking steak. Maybe one's not right and one's not wrong, but this is the art of cooking a perfect steak in my book. I think this is fantastic.